The death of the Black Prince in 1376 and the death of Edward III in 1377 marked the end of the Caroline phase of the Hundred Years' War, a period of resurgence for France under Charles V. These events ushered in a period of uncertainty for England, as the leadership of the war passed to new, less capable hands, and the French were able to capitalize on the shifting dynamics of power. The Black Prince's death, 1376. The Black Prince, Edward of Woodstock, the eldest son of Edward III, had been one of the most prominent military leaders of the Hundred Years' War. He achieved legendary status after his victorious campaigns at Crécy, 1346, and Poitiers, 1356, where he captured the French king, John II. However, by the mid-1370s, the Black Prince was severely ill and in declining health. In 1376, after years of suffering from illness, he passed away at the age of 45. The death of the Black Prince was a significant blow to English morale and military leadership. His illness and death had already caused a shift in the English campaign, as he had been unable to effectively command English forces in France. His passing left a leadership vacuum that would be difficult to fill, particularly as the English monarchy was soon to face further challenges. Edward III's death, 1377. Just a year after the Black Prince's death, Edward III, the long-reigning King of England, died in 1377. He had been the driving force behind much of the early success in the Hundred Years' War and had maintained a strong claim to the French throne. However, by the time of his death, his health had deteriorated, and his later years were marked by political instability and internal strife, particularly with his rebellious son, the Black Prince. Edward III's death led to the ascension of his grandson, Richard II, who was just a child at the time. Richard's youth and inexperience left him vulnerable to manipulation by political factions at court, and he was unable to continue his grandfather's aggressive military campaigns in France. End of the Caroline phase. The deaths of the Black Prince and Edward III marked the end of the Caroline phase of the Hundred Years' War, a period characterized by strong French leadership under Charles V, military victories, and the gradual recapture of French territories that had been lost to England in earlier phases of the war. Charles V, who had restored French fortunes through a series of successful campaigns, particularly under the leadership of Bertrand du Guesclin, had regained much of the territory previously held by England, including key cities in Aquitaine and Gascony. With the English monarchy now under the control of the youthful Richard II and his regents, the military capabilities of England were in decline. The French, by contrast, were poised to continue their recovery under Charles V's successors, and France would continue to dominate the conflict in the decades following Edward III's death. Consequences of the deaths. 1. English weakness. The Black Prince's death and Edward III's passing left England without their two most capable military leaders. The leadership of Richard II, though well-intentioned, lacked the military experience and political stability needed to maintain English supremacy in the war. 2. French ascendancy. The deaths marked a shift in the balance of power. France, now led by Charles V and his capable advisors, was able to continue its territorial gains and began to consolidate its hold on the regions previously lost to the English. 3. French naval and land successes. With Charles V's death in 1380, the French continued to press their advantage, aided by skilled commanders such as Bertrand du Guesclin. The French began to recover lost territories, and their influence over the course of the war began to grow stronger. 4. The lull in fighting. The passing of England's two most significant figures in the war led to a temporary lull in fighting. Both the English and the French were preoccupied with internal politics, as the English crown faced issues of regency, and the French monarchy solidified its leadership. Conclusion. The death of the Black Prince and Edward III in the late 1370s marked the official end of the Caroline phase of the Hundred Years' War. These events shifted the momentum of the conflict toward France, which continued to regain territory and strengthen its position under the leadership of Charles V and his successors. The deaths of the two key figures in England's leadership left the English kingdom in disarray, and it would take several years before England could reorganize and reassert itself in the war. The Hundred Years' War would continue for several more decades, but the French were now in a much stronger position.